Welcome, YouTubers. Back in the early 1950s, a long time ago, my father built for me a really nice little record playing system. He ordered a nice wooden case, a speaker, a little turntable, a little amplifier, installed it all in that nice case, and back in those days, up through junior high school, I had probably the best sounding little record player of any kid I knew, and probably as good as some of the adults had in their house. And so I've been a fan of good sounding music ever since. I've owned a lot of systems over the years. And so, what is the biggest mistake that people make when they're putting together a system? Well, I'm going to give you some little stories about that and tell you how to solve it, resolve it, how to help get the biggest bang for your buck, because most of us have a limited budget of some kind, and that makes it important. One of the things that I found out many years ago, I just came up with this own rule kind of on my own from trial and experience over the years. And so here is the biggest mistake that people make. They don't spend enough on their speakers. And I've kind of found what lots of people do. They spend more money on their amplifier and less money on the speakers, and it would be fairly common to see people got a $600,000-$800,000 amplifier and a $200 pair of speakers. Well, they got that backwards. So if you have a $200 or $300 amplifier, you probably should have $1,000 pair of speakers, and that kind of been my rule over the years. And I'm going to give some little reasons here why and how to deal with it. And to start off, I'm going to have a little clip here from Paul McGowan, the CEO and co-founder of PS Audio. He's a equipment manufacturer, and I just happened here in the last 6 or 8 months to see his video. He puts out videos almost every day. I've clipped it down a little bit. You could go find it and watch the whole thing. But he manufactures and sells electronics, and he's going to tell you spend 2/3 of your budget, if you have a budget for a system, on speakers. And he gives example, somebody has $2,000, they probably should spend about $1,500 of it on the speakers, and what's left over on the amp and so forth. And there's lots of reasons why in here, but if you start off with a good pair of speakers, then when you get other components or when you upgrade other components, you can actually hear the difference.
My opinion, you put most of your money into loudspeakers. Now, I know that the turntable manufacturers would consider that to be heresy. They'd sooner, you put your money into the front end, and everything else, if you can't get it, what's the old line? If you can't get it off the record in the first place, what the hell difference does it make for a good pair of speakers, right? And there's a certain logic to that, but it's also twisted. It's what I like to call pretzel logic. Because while that's true and rather irrefutable, the opposite isn't being covered. Because no matter how good the source is, if you can't reproduce it, then it truly is meaningless. Doesn't matter, right? And we don't restrict ourselves to sources these days. For the most part, we'll have a combination of turntable, of streaming, of CD, and even if we don't, you don't want to focus everything on the electronic chain. While it's important, there's a couple of reasons I'll give you not to do that. And again, I'm an electronics manufacturer, so I'm telling you, go out and spend money with the guys that make speakers.
I agree. And here's a guy that's talking about upgrading your turntable, upgrading your cartridges, and let's hear what he has to say.
On the other hand, if you're listening to vinyl through a pair of $200 bookshelf speakers, you probably won't be able to tell much of a difference. It all comes down to what you have and what you want to achieve.
To help select some speakers, I'm going to give you a few tips. It's very difficult today to listen to speakers, but it's necessary that you listen to some speakers. Speakers from different manufacturers sound different. Of course, there's just an infinite variety out there. We have different listening environments, and we all have different ears. And the part that may sound good to you may not sound good to somebody else. And so, just to give you a little example, and this is nothing about these speakers, but I went into audio store here some years back, and they had about 24 pairs of speakers in one room, 12 pairs of bookshelf, and 12 pairs of floor standers. These were all entry-level kinds of speakers. The most expensive speakers in the room were $8,000, and the lowest price was probably a couple hundred. I actually went there because I'd saw a stereophile review of some B&W speakers, floor standers, that were about $1,800, and that's what I went to listen to. Didn't have to listen but just a few seconds to know I wasn't interested in those speakers. And in that room, they can switch quickly all through the same amp and the same source through various speakers. Now, where the speaker is in the room and those kind of things can vary, and how broken in the speakers are, that can vary, but this gives you a little taste. So what was my taste? There was an $800 pair of bookshelf speakers in that room that sounded better than the $8,000 B&W speakers to my ear. Those are popular speakers. A lot of people like them, and if that's the sound you like, you have to find that out. These speakers all sound different, and so you can't listen to all of them. The speakers you see behind me, I had no way really to listen to these before I purchased them, but I did do a lot of research, and so you have to go out and hear a few speakers, and I'm going to give you some tips. With the internet now, we just have tons of resources, and it's not easy, but it makes it a little easier. Listening to sound clips on YouTube or on the internet, no matter how the files were made, doesn't tell you how that person's system or speaker sound. You're just listening on your system. Excuse me, oftentimes people are listening on headphones. But you can get a lot of information where people describe what's going on, what they like, what they don't like, and that's really valuable. Now, I've found a resource. I've been subscribed to this guy almost since he started, Z Reviews. I'm going to put a link down below. And there's several things important about his channel. He probably reviews more headphones than anything, and that will interest some of you. He reviews the electronics. He reviews all kinds of speakers. And here's what makes it important. Most of the stuff he reviews, he purchases with his own money, with Patreon money, or friends and subscribers send him the speakers. So he is not indebted to some manufacturer to keep getting stuff to review. There's a lot of reviewers on YouTube, and they buy very little stuff. The manufacturers send them stuff to review. They can't really tell the truth. They can't really say anything bad, or the manufacturers will stop sending them stuff. Well, a few manufacturers occasionally send stuff to Z Reviews, but they know they're going to get an honest review when he reviews them. He says what it's like, what he likes, and here's another aspect. This guy loves music. He listens to everything from classical to rap. He knows music. He knows all kinds of music. And he plays all kinds of music, and so he's not just listening to these speakers reproduce the low note on a pipe organ or what they do up at the Twittery end. He's listening on his desk and in his living room to music, and he tells it like it is. And here's just a little short clip. And if you have any interest, the other thing is, I think he's funny. I think he's humorous and entertaining. And even though I don't need any more headphones, I often watch his headphone reviews just for the entertainment.
Oh! Skipping ahead. They're not even distorting. They're not even close to a maximum volume. Ooh, that's a little slappy. You could just see that it's like I knocked the Christmas lights down. It fell and threw a shadow. I'm like, what the fuck? Do these have more bass than Atom T5Vs? Yes. That's why you'd get these for a living room over the Atoms currently. The Atoms are prettier, they're smaller. I think the Atoms have slightly better imaging with their tweeter, but you cannot get more sound for $300 than these. Transistor OST Sandbox hummed. Because she'll all ask in the comments. These are the Bouchart S400s. And they're not very big, are they? Not compared to, like, I don't know, the Kef R3s, or even the originals, the S300s over there. And those are the Mark 1s. The Mark 2s have been on sale for a while. And if you recall, the Bouchart S300s that are up on that shelf there, the ones with the wood color, are my favorite bookshelf speaker of all time. So when they announced the S400, hi Chewbacca, you know it's going to be a good review. Hi. When they announced the S400, I got slightly erect. Up. And when Mads Bouchart said, hey, I'm going to send you a pair to review, I got even more erect. And then when I put them up on my stands, and I was informed I had to play like 50 hours of, break-in, I was like, oh, a little less erect. But then, here we are, literally months later, and I'm ready to give you fully erect Zeos. So, what do they cost, Zeos? $1,900. Have you left yet? Okay, good, I'm glad, because people who can't afford these shouldn't be watching this. However, people who can't afford these might watch this review and then go, oh shit, I need to get my life together, I need to work, I need to start investing and saving, and I gotta sell that old piece of shit car I have, get something more reliable, so I'm throwing away money, and then I could eventually at some point own these speakers. Because that's what you're gonna wanna do. Now,
he has reviewed tons of speakers. He hasn't reviewed any of the super expensive things, but he's reviewed tons of speakers that are in most of people's range. And one of the things that I want to mention, though, is that some of you have vintage speakers, and nothing wrong with that, but I'll throw my opinion out here. Probably speaker technology. You look at those things, they look the same as they did 50 years ago. Well, I think speaker technology has improved more than any other part of the music listening experience. And one of the other things about vintage speakers, kind of like an old pair of shoes, they get real comfortable and then pretty soon they get wore out and you have to throw them away. So maybe you can go to the Goodwill and find a pair of speakers for $50 and maybe they sound great. But I'm saying if you really want to get good sound, you're probably going to have to check out a few of these new ones. Now, I got a pair of old Bose back when they really made speakers from the 70s. I think they're 301s or something like that. I bought them way back in the day just for bedroom speakers. I just listened to music at night when I went to bed. They weren't my main speakers. I still have those speakers. They've been in a closet for 25 or 30 years. They're still in perfect condition, and they sound excellent. I set them up on stands in the room, and they sound good. But there isn't any comparison to what the technology has developed now with speakers that you can get for a very modest price, blow away speakers that were expensive not too awful many years ago. This is a big topic, and of course, I could go on forever. There's lots of different aspects to it. I just want to give people a little introduction here. I've got another YouTube channel I like. I'm going to leave a link down below. This person's channel is Thomas and Stereo. He's just an audiophile hobbyist. He likes equipment. He buys, sells, and trades equipment all the time. He's had lots of equipment, and he reviews them and says what he thinks. There's no manufacturers involved here. And he's got a bunch of audiophile friends, and they go to each other's home and review the equipment, talk about it. They even loan equipment to each other to take to their house and try it out and see how it sounds in their system. And you just can't hardly get that experience anywhere anymore. So check out his channel, and there's lots of good information there, and this is just some examples of what's available.
Hey everyone, it's Thomas here. So 2 days ago I uploaded a video called The Best Speaker to Get. And I decided to take down the video because I realized by reading the comments, people were asking the same question. And then I also realized there's some things that I should not have put in the video. So what I've done, I've decided to answer like 2 or 3 questions.
So to wrap it up here, you really need to listen to some speakers, and boy, that gets more and more difficult to do. You know, if you live in New York or a few of these towns where they have a big audiophile dealer, you can probably go listen to some stuff. And that's fairly difficult because it's not like that room I mentioned earlier where there are 24 pairs of speakers in one room and you can really get some compare and contrast in it. A lot of the audio dealers just have little stage setups kind of thing, and you hear that one and then you go to another location and hear another one. Well, of course, the equipment's changed, the room dynamics have changed, everything's changed. It makes it a little harder to compare, but you have to do something. And kind of one last little thing, one place where you can hear a lot of this stuff is audio shows. Now, you can't hardly ever compare. Some of the showrooms will have maybe a couple different speakers in one room, but generally each manufacturer has a room. They have a system set up, and you can hear what that sounds like with that system in that room, but that gives you a little idea. Do you like a warmer sound? Do you like a more musical sound? Do you like a more bright sound, a more revealing, all these kind of words that people use? Well, to actually learn what those words mean, you have to experience some of those sounds in these systems, and then you'll be ready to go. But I got good news. I think that just practically any of these new speakers that have been coming out in the last few years, ELAC is a big kind of budget brand, and in a number of different price ranges, and like the Z Reviews does, I think that you can get a heck of a good sounding speaker without spending a lot of money. And if you live in an area where you can get out and listen, hey, that's some fun. And so what I got to say is keep 'em spinning and see you all down the trail.